Just a moment. All right. So I'm looking at all these games for the first time. I prefer that approach. And right now the game, Slav defense, the exchange line. Okay, so one problem with symmetrical positions is that black can't copy white for very long. Eventually he's going to have to deviate. Okay, that's the first rule of thumb. So, but for now we can say the position is dead even. White hasn't challenged black with one of the sharper lines. Now, one thing about trying to help the league grow, help the players play better, I have to repeat this pretty much every video. The number one reason, above all other reasons, in my opinion, why people lose chess games is they move too fast. Now, it seems to be pretty bad in ICC. It was like this 6 years ago when I was doing videos before. But, we have to take our time. Give you a little background here. Any title player, grandmaster, whoever, they all got their title playing slow chess, okay? And nobody gets their title playing blitz chess, but the internet is full of blitz chess. This channel, my Twitch channel, does not. We're not going to do blitz chess. We're going to do slow time controls. But even 45-45 doesn't quite approach time limits you would play if you were in a club setting, unless it's a club that has limited hours. A weekend tournament, 40-90 delay, 40-90, 40 moves, 90 minutes, 30-second increment, and after 40 moves you get 30 minutes sudden death, okay? These are common time controls. That's the FIDE time control. 45-45, if you both take all your moves and it lasts 40 moves, you're going to see the game go 2.5 hours, okay? That's not that quick. Most of your long-term games go 4 or 5, maybe even 6 hours, okay? So what we want to do is to play better, you need to take your time. Now, I've done the math. Basically, to make move 40, you have 75 minutes to do it when you add your increments in. So your goal would be to take as much time as you can to reach move 40. One thing about move 40, half the games are done before move 40, the other half are past move 40. Usually by move 40, we can tell what the likely result is going to be. White wins, white loses, draw. That doesn't mean it'll turn out that way. We're just saying the likely result. So you got to take your time to get there. And, you have nearly 2 minutes a move. At 40 moves in 75 minutes, you have nearly 2 minutes a move. That doesn't mean sit there and take 110 seconds every move. Sometimes you can move quickly. Sometimes you need to stop and maybe think for 10 minutes. And I've seen many games ruined because somebody moved too fast. And I tell my students, I don't care if you play a bad move as long as you take your allotted time. We'll help you find the right way to play this. We'll teach you what you could have done. But you got to give yourself a chance to find that move. So, got to say that every video. Okay, so now here we see A6. Now, those that are familiar with my videos will know that I talk a lot about moving these rook pawns. We're going to discuss if this is justified in a moment, but it bears repeating. If you guys are pushing your rook pawns up, you need to stop. There are some positions you do, but in most positions you don't. Now, I've dubbed these, when they come up and play H6 also, I've dubbed this the internet defense, because it was invented by tens of thousands of people, and they're still discovering it today, who play on the internet. They didn't read chess books. They didn't have a coach, didn't learn the principles. And in my opinion, they're doing this to keep bishops and knights out of these squares, okay? Why? Because bishops pin knights and knights deliver forks. Now let's back this up. Is white threatening to play knight b5? Well, maybe he is. Maybe this a6 is justified. We have to assess this. But for the moment, I would say he isn't. Let's play bishop g4 here. I have a rule of thumb. If you're not sure what to do, develop a piece. And there's another rule, old master said, move your pieces, not your pawns. Then I ask a question, what's white going to do? And the answer is we don't know. But we want to be prepared for whatever we see. Let's suppose white does this. He doesn't have to, but let's just suppose. Now he's threatening a fork. Well, couldn't black just play rook c8 here and defend against this? It's a simple, straightforward question. If white gives the check, he's giving up 2 pieces for the rook. So my point here is that I don't think in this position black needs to play this. And we don't even know if he wants to play here. Okay, now there may be other resources for black. Maybe he could check. Maybe he could stop and give a check. I don't know. Maybe it's no good. But it might force white to put his knight back here. Okay, if he, right? So, you know, we're so afraid of these pins and these forks that get delivered from these squares that we've got in the habit of pushing. Now, don't get me wrong. In some main lines, it's quite proper to push that rook pawn. Okay, but if you watch some of my videos, you'll see more discussion on this. Okay, so what's happened at this point in time? And here, let's just draw attention to this. 5 seconds. He gained 36 seconds on his clock, meaning black took 9 minutes 9 seconds to make this move. Could he have properly seen everything I showed you? And the answer is no. But he has stopped knight b5, but at a price. He's falling behind in development. Okay, now the question is black threatening this? And my answer is no. White can now play bishop e2, and if knight b4, white just castles. Let's see what happens. He decides not to play this. Oops. I do that periodically. My mouse just drifts. Okay. Let's see. Sorry. Let's get back to the gist of things here. Okay, so what's happened? Black has spent a tempo. White has all 4 minors developed and he's castled. Black is lagging behind. So white's a tempo and a half ahead. How do I get a tempo and a half? Well, it's simple. Let's back this up one. White has bought all 4 minors out. Black hasn't. White is castled. Black hasn't. White is 2 tempos ahead, but it's black's turn. When black plays this move, black is now 1 tempo behind. So the average between 2 and 1 is 1.5. Now, what should white do and what shouldn't he do? Well, one thing he shouldn't do is capture this bishop. Why? Because that develops black's queen. Now, I have a saying for this. White moves white pieces, black moves black pieces, right? You agree with me there? But if you're playing an absolute beginner, they're not going to realize they need to take this queen, or the queen take this. They're going to go play something silly like this. And now you just run away and retreat your bishop and your piece up, right? Well, unfortunately, you're not playing a beginner and they're going to play here. So what I say is, black did not make that move with his queen. White did. White moved black's queen. And we can see the ramifications of it. Let's develop white's queen. Let's castle. And look at what's happened. The back ranks match. Both queens are developed. The knights match. And both bishops are developed. Black is only a half a tempo behind. So that's another reason you don't want to develop your opponent's pieces. Don't move. You move your pieces. Heck with your opponents. So what should white do here? Well, one thing he shouldn't do is take this. Now, myself, I'm not a fan of allowing my pawns to be doubled here. I've seen many people do it. I've seen international masters do it. It's not easy to crack that. But, like I said, myself, it's a taste and preference. So I'm going to move that bishop. Where am I going to put it? I don't know. I'm probably going to make a pin. Pins are good things. Okay, they're very good things. Now, what's black going to do? We don't know. Well, maybe he'll play h6. Well, let's just keep the pin alive. Maybe he'll play here. Well, we'll come back here. Now, we could come back just to g3 directly, and these wouldn't be thrown in. But, you know, black has to think twice about castling kingside here. You know, game's still about even. But I like white simply because black is weak in his queenside. So let's see what white does. He brings here. Now, I'm kind of against that, although it's not a bad move. First off, we can see the obvious. If he captures with the knight, we have a fork, okay? And if he takes with the bishop, we can take with the pawn, and we have the bishop pair. Even though this bishop is a little shut in, we do have the bishop pair. We pick up access to this square, but and this knight now has to move. But I don't know. Maybe white's in trouble here. Okay, how does white guard that pawn? So let's see what happened. He castled. So let's review this again. What if he takes here? I think he doesn't get the bishop pair. If we go this way, now you're going to guard this pawn. Well, you're going to do this. Well, what has this done? This has created a weakness. Now maybe black could play here. Now, it doesn't mean black is winning a pawn. White has some play here. Let's look at this. I see queen d4. The idea is we're protecting this weak pawn here, and if he captures this, we're going to turn around and come down here. So, you know, maybe this is not something white can really gain from. You know, black can't castle here, he'll drop his knight. Black could play this move, but then white can always just come back if he really wants to. Or, let's see, we can't play rook here. What else can we do here? I could play a tricky move here, maybe. You know, well, probably not. Let's see, takes. I think black can defend this. That's my gut feeling. Oops, whoops. Oh, that was a trade. But I don't know, black's pinned up here. See, you know. Fascinating stuff, huh? This is how you analyze a chess game. If he comes up here, it's still pinned. So how does black get out of this pin? Meanwhile, white wants to do this and this and get his piece back. You know, it's tricky stuff. But this would have been okay for black. This should be okay too. Okay. So, you know, both sides are getting developed. You know, game is staying relatively even. Maybe black has something with this. He does. He'll probably take, yep. Okay, so game looks even. Creates a little weakness here, but should be okay. And a little zwish and zug. So we have to be careful here with these zwish and zugs. Okay. What if we gave up the queen? We got two pieces for it. But this, unfortunately, well, you didn't have to take that bishop. Let's see. I mean, this is no good for white. So we got to move the queen. Okay. So, you know, very symmetrical position. The only things that don't match are the F pawns and the bishops. And I guess the A pawns, but now they match. Now here's a case of possibly not the best exchange. Let's do this move instead. Okay, the reason is our threat is to take, and then take over control of the file. You know, white still has the advantage of the first move, although he's given it back. He was a tempo and a half ahead. let's make black find the move queen d7 to maintain the balance. Okay. See, like if black plays something like this, you know, we get this, and we come over, and then white is taking control of the open file. Is that enough to win? Well, it's a start. Okay. So now we could still do this, but black will do this. And when we swing a rook over, black will swing a rook over. So this game is very, very, very even. And black is starting to take his time. But here it looks like white's just happy to make trades. So black should not make this trade, because that puts that white would be moving black would be moving white's rook to c1. So neither side should seek to make this trade. If white were to take, that puts the black rook on the c file. Okay, so black comes up with an interesting move. Remember I talked about that pawn being weak? Well, now black has a threat. Black is threatening to play queen takes queen, rook takes queen, and bishop takes pawn check. So white might need to play f4 here. F4 gains a tempo on the bishop and stops the nonsense on e3, but it weakens this e4 square. I don't know, maybe this bishop is going to become very powerful, and maybe this bishop is going to, on e5, is going to run into some trouble, because it wouldn't be able to retreat if kicked with f6. Let's see what happens. Now here, again, I'm against this choice. I don't want to take the double pawns. White's taking, almost giving himself a theoretically losing position. I'll explain that in a moment. I think you need to play here. But we do have to watch out about this bishop. So let's come over here, okay? Otherwise, if we don't, eventually it might get in trouble. So we'll just take the bull by the horns and do this now. Now, as I mentioned, black can get this in. That becomes a strong bishop. You know, this bishop, especially with the majority of white's pawns on dark squares, you know, this bishop here becomes a very good bishop if you can get behind them. If white were to play bishop f3, he's getting rid of his good bishop. Now you got to be careful. You're stepping into a pin. Watch out. See? So you'd have to take with a pawn. Or just let that thing sit there. Let this bishop sit here for a minute and do this first. But then what future does this bishop have? Okay. So let's see what happens. He probably took. Now here, I said to talk about it. White has two weaknesses now. In theory, white is losing. This pawn is doubled, and this pawn is isolated. So, you know, white's only advantage is he got rid of his bad bishop, and still has his good bishop. Now, it's up to black to demonstrate. So he's playing this move. This is actually a very good move, something they call creeping moves. I think it was Alexander Kodov in his Think Like a Grandmaster series that he called something a little creeping move. You know, we think of a queen as a long-range piece, but what does this do? Well, number one, it prepares to tempo the queen, and at the same time, it prepares to keep the white queen tied down to defending this pawn. So were it black to play, and black is going to start increasing his advantage, because the queen must vacate the c file, and then suddenly black owns that c file. Okay, so white needs to play queen d2 here, or maybe queen e3. Let's see what he does. Play queen d2. This way he can answer rook over with rook over, maintaining some semblance of balance. Okay. So, you know, what can white do? Well, let's see. Maybe he should try to play b4 and wedge this rook down here. You know, white still has some problems with his pawns. Let's see what happens. Okay. Now, that's clearly a mistake. Okay, remember, we talked about this. We don't want to give up the file. So this move threatens to take the file. You know, like you say, what's black going to do? We don't know. Let's say he brings his king closer. Well, let's see. Let's stop and play g3 and give this some protection. He brings his king closer. Now we slide over here, and white controls the c file. If you know, we could liquidate, but here, you know, because of the bishops and the way the pawn structure is set, I think white can hold the draw even with its two weaknesses. You know, the queen side is pretty much locked up. Black's alternative would be to capture on this square, but that cedes white a nice square for his queen and a protected pass pawn. So, you know, if white's just thinking this is going to draw, he's going to be in for a little shock here. But he definitely needs to get g3 in so his queen isn't tied down. Okay, very good. Now, that's probably an error by black for a lot of reasons. He had control of the c file. Why sacrifice it? Why let white off the hook? And then I ask you, what is black's target in this endgame? You know, with his bishop, the answer is one measly pawn, f3. How is black going to attack this isolated pawn on d4? And the answer is he isn't. So, you know, b5 may not have been that good of a move. You know, theoretically, this was a way the king might have, with a little luck, gotten in the game. Okay. Yes, of course, black can block it, or white can stop it with his bishop, but maybe this bishop can finagle around and help out. Okay, let's see what happens. So it wouldn't surprise me if they agreed to a draw here, even though white may be strategically losing, as I said. Now here's an error. Why is this an error? Well, a number of reasons. Okay, first off, you have to say to yourself, is white winning this? And the answer is no. Black arguably only has one weakness. Here it is. Okay, so the last thing, you don't want to advance your pawns unless you have a pawn majority. You don't want to advance your pawns, and by advancing his pawn, he's putting it on a light square, the color of his bishop. So if you advance your pawns, you're going to make them targets. Let's see what happens. Now, black should have probably been trying to build up on the dark squares. Like, for instance, this might be a better choice. Now, if white pushes here, we don't want to take and undouble his pawns, but we want to find a way to force white to take one of these. Here's a way to do that. Okay, now if takes,
check.
See, suddenly this king has entry points to try and work something out. Okay, there's all kinds of ways for black to break in this position. So this, and if white doesn't play g5, say he plays h3, black is going to play this. Now, if you take, you know, we have this pawn on a dark square, and suddenly we fix 3 pawns on light squares that could become targets at some point by the bishop. Now, white, black does have ways to, to try to invade the white position, but this would be a start. Okay, so g6. White could have also played this, although that weakens this square. Maybe black can find a way to sneak his king in. I don't know, maybe not. h4. All right, let's see what happens. Now he's on the right path. Now I've got to save the bishop. So I would think, let's put the bishop here. Then we want to go here and dare white to give us a protected pass pawn. And then if the bishop flees the diagonal, we can run behind the pawns. So, black is taking his time. Now, I think they agreed to a draw here. Let me check. let's see. Or maybe I'm not in the main line. Oh, he did go there. Okay, no, they didn't agree to a draw. Now this is risky for white. You know, I mean, he might be in trouble in the king and pawn ending. Let's see if they go that way. No. So black fails to put his pawns on the color of his, on the opposite color of his bishop.
Check. Check.
And white wants to undouble his pawns. Well, you know, let's see.
Check.
Chances are this is going to become a draw. You know, white can't get any targets. So I guess white's playing for a win here.
Check.
Now, potentially, maybe later, white could do some kind of a breakthrough. So white should probably play f4. But I think it looks like the game is headed for a draw. And you see now, black has missed his chance to create targets. And it says drawn by mutual agreement. Well, I'm not so sure this is a draw. Maybe it is. See, let me explain. Okay. The idea is to transfer the king here and push here. Even though it still may be a draw. There may not be any way to break through. Let's head that direction. Now, if takes, if you come here, he goes here. So we try triangulation. We take the distant opposition. Now, if we come here, he forces him out. And black takes the distant opposition and holds the game. So, you know, and even let's give up this pawn. Black is a pawn ahead, right? He has 6 pawns, white has 5. Let's give up this pawn. Now, this is very tricky.
Check.
Wait, check. I'm sorry, wrong piece. Yeah, I was trying to get this sack in for black and run with one of these. That's not going to happen. Yeah, so the draw in the end seems legit. But had black done it differently, see, he had his chance here. You know, he could even play this almost. If we sack the pawn. Now, unfortunately, black can't. Well, no, black can go after it with his king. He has the target. Let's see. I don't know. That's probably still a draw. Let's see what else is here. I think it had to have been done earlier. But the way, let's see. I want to go here. I want to get here as fast as I can. What's white going to do? We don't know. He'll play here. Now maybe he'll come back here rather than let the bishop in. But now black has time for this. Now if white pushes here, he's just making a catastrophe out of his position. Black's going to come in and he's going to steal this pawn, and then he's going to probably have access into here. And this pawn will come up, and you know there's going to be a pass pawn on the board. And let's see. So if white plays here, his king becomes overloaded. Now white's not going to win this pawn. He can't get his king up to it. And black is going to chip away at these white pawns. His king will come up. Well, I may not get to g5, but he will get an f5 break in. This pawn has to come up to stop king g5. So he can't play bishop or king up. So he's almost, well, you know, this just is begging for trouble because now there's a protected pass pawn on the board. black can answer a future f4 with f6, and white's not going to crack through here. Meanwhile, this king is going to come up to this square, and black will save his tempo moves. Let's see, white to play. Let's go here, here. White's on, he's stuck moving his king. Okay, then tempo move, and white has to give ground. White loses. So what else do we have here? Yeah, you don't want to take on c4. So when you come down here, you run into this problem. And I think white's coughing up a pawn. Unless he can trap that bishop. Let's see. Maybe he can trap the bishop. Let's see. It takes. Whoops. It takes. Whoops. Get down here. There we go. Want to play here to trap the bishop, and then go after it with the king. I don't know. Black might have some resources here. Let's see. Bishop here, pawn up. Now the bit, we're giving up this pawn, but the bishop got out, and now black just needs to march his king over and collect that pawn. So this good example of a game where you want your pawns on the opposite color of your bishop, and that's why white's g4 was an error, and had black seen through, he might have won this game. So they did do better on time than some people do, but they still could have gone a little slower. Let's see. So he spent he lost a minute and 6 seconds on the clock. Plus I had his 45-minute. Black took enough time. Okay, that was a interesting game, and there was definitely ways to win what looks like is headed for a draw. Okay, let me. All these are going up to YouTube.